take off their clothes and do all sorts of immoral things, and nobody questions them. They say they have the right to do that. Now here, a woman is choosing to be decent. Then who actually has the right to interfere with that? That's the hypocrisy sometimes or the double standards of the society, that you apply it in one way, but you don't apply it in the other way. I mean, either you object to everybody, immoral thing, or you just cannot selectively apply it to certain people. خير إن شاء الله. Let's start إن شاء الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us recognize the truth and help us follow it, and to help us recognize the falsehood and help us avoid it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the best of our deeds, the last ones that we do, and the best of our days that we shall meet Him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wallahi, today we're going to take a little break actually of some of the current events and what is happening, and we try to cover a relaxing topic, which is that of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, according to some of the narrations, the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam was born on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, which is the day after tomorrow, right? Today I think is the 10th. And I think it is a good maybe time to remember about the blessings of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sending us that great human being to convey the message to us. And it is good to ponder about certain things, and like I said, to think about some of the greatness that he was alayhi salatu wassalam. So what I'd like to discuss, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, He praised him like He praised nobody else in the Quran. When Allah praised His character, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, you have a great character. When Allah praised His words, مَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, that He does not speak out of His own desires. He praised His heart, مَا كَذَبَ الْفُؤَادُ مَا رَأَى. And He praised His path. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ. That indeed you have in the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam a great example for anyone who's seeking Allah in the last day. So if my goal is to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and success in this life and the next, then the best example, of course, is the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. If my goal is just to make money, then the Prophet is not my example. So if my goal is to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, and to be happy in this life and in the next as much as I could, then the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is the best example. That's why when we're discussing the guidance of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, is not just because it's a source of blessing, it's nice and all of that, because that's actually where the success would lie. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined in the Quran the measure of success when He said, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَقَدْ فَازَ. That anyone who is saved out of hellfire and admitted into paradise, he won. So this is the measure of success. If I want to be successful in that regard, then the path of the Prophet ﷺ is the best example. It was the best one to follow. That's why when we're studying the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, because that's actually where success lies. So what would, let's say, a day according to the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ look like? If somebody's following or living a day based on the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Now this is, by the way, is going to be a little bit of a satire, so you will not think that I'm local, somebody's crazy, but just like a satire, and we'll correct the situation. Of course, you stay up really late at night. You can be staying up, even playing games or whatever, and you go really late to bed. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, right? In other words, stay up at night for most of it or less than half of it. And of course, when you go to bed really late at night, you wake up late. So you wake up probably like 9, 10, 11, even later than that. And you have missed Salat al-Fajr. But of course, the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ نَامَ عَنْ صَلَاةٍ أَوْ نَسِيَهَا فَلْيُؤَدِّهَا مَتَى اسْتَطَاعَ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Anyone that oversleeps or sleeps over a prayer or forgets to pray it, so he would pray it whenever he could. In other words, we're still doing the guidance of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. And you go to work, of course, or school, and you come back. And when you come back, of course, you play basketball for 3-4 hours, because the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام said, الْمُؤْمِنُ الْقَوِيُّ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِ الضَّعِيفِ. The strong believer is better than the weak believer. And after that, of course, you spend maybe like 3-4 hours on Facebook and Twitter checking things out, because the Prophet ﷺ said, he who doesn't, even though the hadith is weak, he who does not care about the affair of the ummah is not a member of the ummah. And of course, after that, you go spend a few hours at a hookah shop with the brothers. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, be with the jama'ah and do not stay away from the jama'ah, for the wolf eat from the flock, the sheep that strays away. And of course, you may smoke some of that thing in there. God knows what they put on that hookah thing. It's not just tobacco, by the way, a mixture of things. And of course, as somebody said, it's not my joke, somebody said, if it is halal, then we're smoking it. It's halal, we're smoking it. If it's haram, well, we're burning it. We're covered both ways. But of course, that's not the way it should be, right? The Prophet ﷺ, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. He's talking about قِيَامُ اللَّيْل, the salat of al-layl. Not just being up for the heck of it, or for playing games. No, Allah is talking in Surah Al-Muzammil about qiyamul layl, salat al-qiyam. That's what it's talking about. And of course, when the Prophet said anyone who oversleeps, sleeps over a prayer or forgets it, this is being the exception. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا, that the salat was prescribed on the believers at specific times. But when you pray on time and for some reason you oversleep, or you forget, then you perform the salat. And of course, when the Prophet ﷺ said that the strong believer is better than the weak believer, this is not just referring to the physical strength, but mostly about the strength of Iman, the strength of the character, more than anything else. And of course, about Facebook and all of these things, the Prophet ﷺ did say, مِنْ حُسْنِ إِسْلَامِ الْمَرْءِ تَرْكُهُ مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. This is the hadith that we have to follow. In other words, a sign of a person's righteousness or Islam, good Islam, is that he minds his own business. He does not go around checking people's profile left and right and what she said and what he said and all of these things. And of course, after that, going back about the hookah thing, the smoking itself, of course, is haram, actually. Because the Prophet ﷺ did say, لا ضرر ولا ضرار, that anything that harms the person or harms others is prohibited, whether both ways or the other. So this is the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, not the first scenario. Now the Prophet ﷺ, of course, how was his life? How was his character? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised his character by saying, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, you have a great character. Who was praising the Prophet ﷺ? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not anybody, but it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah says you have a great character, means it doesn't get any better than that, any greater than the character of the Prophet ﷺ. And among the qualities of the Prophet's character is that power did not spoil him ﷺ. The fact that he became as powerful as he was, the leader, the greatest, ﷺ, it did not spoil him. Sometimes you'll find some of the brothers, if he's in charge of a committee, then suddenly he's a different person. I'm in charge of this. He's the Prophet ﷺ. And he was one of the companions. So in other words, it did not get to his heart, ﷺ. But he was one of his companions. He was just one of them. That's why, interestingly, there's a story about Rabi ibn Amir, alayhi ridwanullah, in the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah. Before the beginning of the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, this Rabi ibn Amir, who was a Bedouin, a Bedouin, he says that his clothes are covered with holes and patches and everything, so he wasn't someone impressive when you look at him, so to speak. So he goes to negotiate with the king of Persia before the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah. So here's this Bedouin and this great mighty king with gold all over his tent and things hanging, whatever. He goes to negotiate with him and he sits next to the king. So the king, gets shocked. Hey, this Bedouin, shabby looking, whatever, is sitting next to me. So he pushes him. Are you crazy? How could you sit next to me? Then Rabi ibn Amir told him, Wallah, you're an evil person. We used to sit with our Prophet like he was one of us. This is the Prophet ﷺ. So he was like everybody else ﷺ. Once Umar ibn Khattab enters the masjid and he finds the Prophet sleeping in the corner of the masjid like you and I would do if you're tired sometimes. And he wakes up and the gnat left its mark on his blessed face ﷺ. And Umar cries, says, Ya Rasulullah, look at you, but basically what you have, and Kisra and Qaisar, the kings of Rome and Persia, are enjoying what you have. And the Prophet told him that these are people who were giving their blessings in this life, not in the hereafter. But he was like that, alayhi salatu wasalam. So when you're talking about his great character, it's that he was one of the companions, one of the Sahaba, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. He said that one day I woke up and I decided I'm going to spend that day with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So they had that luxury. He was that accessible, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he said it was a hot day, so I go with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, and we go into some kind of a grove, and it was hot. And the Prophet sits on the bank of a well, and he puts his feet in the water. It's like you and I would do, if he would go. But that's how he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. And of course, his life was very comprehensive, so to speak, in that he went through the things that you and I actually would go through. Sometimes you may read about the character of some of the great personalities in history, like Ahmad bin Hanbal, for example. And you'll feel that would be a very difficult person to emulate. Ahmad bin Hanbal was very difficult to emulate because in his nature he was a little tough. And you may read the same thing about some other people, let's say for example, and you will get the same impression that, well, there's no way I can follow his example. Ibn Taymiyyah, for example, or Salah ad-Din, or some of the great people. But when you read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, you don't get that impression. You get the impression that I could do that. In other words, it is more easily accessible, not just as a person when he was alive, but as an example. So the Prophet went through the same thing that you and I would go through. The Prophet was a father. He was a husband. He was a friend. He went through the same pain and difficulties that you and I actually would go through. He was not someone irrelevant, alayhi salatu wasalam. He's as relevant today as he was actually when he was alive. And you get that impression by looking at his character. And he was able to achieve the greatness in different facets of his life. Sometimes you may separate certain aspects from another for academic purpose, just so you can study them. For example, the leadership skills. Or you would study, for example, the spirituality of somebody. Or you would study, for example, the management skill, the leadership, or something like that. The political leadership, or the social leadership. But that's just an academic thing, for an academic purpose. But otherwise, it was the same person. That's why one reflects the other. One is connected to the other. There's no separation from one and the other. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ was able to achieve the success, with the comprehensiveness in his character. And you cannot, like I said, divide or cut or separate some aspect from others. Give you an example, what I'm talking about. If you look at Umar al-Khattab alayhi ridwanillah. Umar al-Khattab alayhi ridwanillah, of course, was known to be very strict, very tough. And everybody likes, the brothers of course in particular, everybody likes to emulate Umar alayhi ridwanillah. I want to be as strict as Umar. I want to be as tough as Umar. Well, yes, that's good. But Umar, as tough as he was infinitely just, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was just, he was fair, and he was merciful. So if you do not have the justice of Umar, do not try to have the strictness of Umar. Because the strictness of Umar was controlled by the justice of Umar. It's not one isolated aspect, period. No, but they complement one another. That's why he was very strict, but he was very just at the same time. So you cannot be strict, period, and forget about the justice. You have to have both at the same time. That's why, alayhi ridwanillah, an example, is the story we mentioned in some earlier occasions, that how once, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, basically somebody donated some perfume, to the Muslims. And of course, that cannot be divided among the Muslims. So what he decided to do is to sell it, and the money will be returned back to the treasury of the Muslims. So his wife was helping him in that regard. So she started pouring the perfume in small bottles, and selling it until the money actually came back. But when she was pouring them in small bottles, some of it, you can avoid it, got on her fingers. So she would wipe it over her khimar, you know. And at the end of the day, all of it was sold. Umar alayhi ridwanullah comes back and he smells something. Something smells nice. I didn't buy you any perfume. You know? Where did that come from? And she told him that basically this came from the process when I was dividing these things. And he said, that's the money of the Muslims. Wallahi, I will not accept that. So he grabbed her khimar, started washing it and smelling it. Washing it and smelling it until all of it was gone. Now here you would say, well, but it's already in there. In other words, I'd say that's already in there. Well, yes, but when somebody smells that perfume on the wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen, what are they going to think? That he gave her some of the perfume basically for free. So here's Umar's strictness, alayhi ridwanullah, that this is, when it comes to the rights of Allah, he was very strict. But when it comes to his own rights, he would give in. That's why the same Umar, alayhi ridwanullah, once a person, when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, a person had an argument with his wife, that his wife used to talk very roughly to him. So he decides to go complain to Umar, of course, about his own wife. So he goes to the house of Umar, he knocks on the door, and after he knocks on the door, he overhears inside the wife of Umar talking even more rudely to Umar than his own wife. So he decides to leave. As he was leaving, then Umar opens the door. Who knocks? Oh, I did, but just forget about it. Don't worry about it. No, why did you knock on my door? And he told him that, well, I came seeking your help. I found you in a worse situation than myself. Basically, look at what you have. But Umar alayhi ridwanullah reminded him, he said, shouldn't we be kind to them, to our wives? In other words, they prepare the food, they raise the kids, they do this, they do that. You know, shouldn't we be nice to them? In other words, Umar is not to be intimidated by a man or a woman. Nobody intimidates Umar alayhi ridwanullah. So that's why he gave in willingly in there. When it comes to his own rights, he would give in willingly. When it comes to the rights of Allah, he would not compromise alayhi salatu wasalam. See, this is the balance. And of course, the greatest example in that regard, what Umar followed, was the Prophet himself alayhi salatu wasalam. That's why his wife used to say that he used to help with the housework, even patching up some of his socks sometimes alayhi salatu wasalam. That كان يكون في حاجة أهله. He used to help out with the housework. However, she said that when the call of prayer is made, then as if he doesn't know anybody anymore. That's it. He leaves everything. Now it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would not compromise. He was the most courageous, alayhi salatu wassalam. Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi ridwanullah, he used to say, كان إذا حمي الوطيس احتمينا برسول الله. That whenever the fighting intensifies in the battle, we would seek refuge and protection next to the Prophet. And he said that none of us will be closer to his enemy than the Prophet will be to his. So nobody was as courageous in the battlefield as the Prophet was, alayhi salatu wassalam. That's why in the battle of Hunayn, you know, the whole army actually ran away. Everybody ran away, and he's the only one that stayed behind, shouting to everybody, declaring, أنا محمد لا كذب أنا ابن عبد المطلب. That I am Muhammad, the son of Abdul Muttalib. In other words, like, come and get me, so to speak. So that's how courageous he was, alayhi salatu wasalam. When it comes to his own rights, he would give in. This is the balance that we're talking about. You know, once he was in the house of Aisha, alayhi ridwanullah, and one of his other wives, you know, she knew that the Prophet liked certain kind of food, but Aisha didn't know how to cook it. So she sent him a plate with some of that food, basically, to where he was in the house of Aisha. Aisha got very upset. So she grabbed the plate and she smashed it down. I mean, what's the first thing that we would say? Well, at least learn how to cook it yourself before you do that, right? But that's not the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They said that he was smiling, collecting the pieces of that plate, saying, غَضِبَتْ أُمُّكُمْ غَضِبَتْ أُمُّكُمْ. Your mother, means the mother of the believers, got upset, your mothers got upset. And what he did, he took one of the plates of Aisha and he gave it to the other wife instead of the one that she broke down. That's justice. It's fairness. You know. One day, alayhi salatu wassalam, in the middle of the night, he went out to use the restroom. I mean, they didn't have those nice bedroom suites and all of these things. So the restroom was somewhere outside. So he went outside, alayhi salatu wassalam. His wife that he was with that night thought that he went to another wife. Aisha, so what does she do? She locks the door. The Prophet comes back. You know, the door is locked. What does his wife tell him? Go back to where you came from. Subhanallah, can you imagine that? This is Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. And the Prophet very gently and very kindly, he told her that, no, I was just using the restroom. You know, this is the great character, that when it comes to his own rights, he can give in. But when it comes to the rights of Allah, he would not compromise alayhi salatu wasalam. And the character of a person shows in a situation of strength, by the way, not in a situation of weakness. In other words, when you can vent the anger or retaliate, but you decide not to. It's not when the person is weak and helpless. This is not as good, you know, I mean, the character does not show in a situation like that. Well, I can't do anything. You know? But when you are strong, and another example in that regard, of course, was Umar bin Abdul Aziz, the famous example. Umar bin Abdul Aziz, of course, he was also Amir al-Mu'mineen, and according to scholars, some scholars, he is the fifth guided Khalifa, because he is of the same caliber. So once he enters the masjid in the middle of the night, and it was dark, so by mistake, he hit somebody's foot as he was walking in. So the man tells him, Anta himar, are you a donkey? Why don't you watch where you're walking? Look, what you're walking, you know. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz said, no, I'm not a donkey. His bodyguard got really upset, and he was about to basically sock the other guy, to knock him down. How could you say something like that to Amir al-Mu'mineen? Then Umar bin Abdul Aziz calmed him down, and he says, no, calm down. He just asked me a question. He wanted to know whether I was a donkey or not, and I explained to him that I wasn't. It's that simple. You know, of course, he could easily punish him, but this is the strength of the character. This is the good character. That's when it shows in situations like that. And the Prophet ﷺ was the best example in that regard. When he was strong, but yet forgiving despite his strength. And that shows mostly when he enters Mecca, after, you know, what they did to him, after the persecution and the oppression and the killing and the chasing out and all of these things. Now the Prophet enters Mecca to those same people having the upper hand over them, and he gathers them. ما تظنون أني فاعل بكم? What do you think I'm doing? And they told him, oh, أخ كريم وابن أخ كريم. You know, you're a nice, dignified, noble brother, the son of a noble brother. Well, he's always been noble. You just saw it now. Of course, he's always been noble. Because he's strong now, they suddenly saw it, you know. And the Prophet ﷺ, like I said, he could easily actually have punished them. And he said to them, اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, you are the free one. So he was forgiving, alayhi salatu wasalam. You know, that's why sometimes, you know, we hold grudges against others and we just don't let go. You know, the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, we don't know of any instance where he held an ill feeling against any of the Sahaba, except one, by the way. Who is that one? Yes. The one who killed Hamza, Wahshi. See, the reason, because the Prophet was a human being, and the memory of the mutilation of Hamza always comes back when he sees that man. So he told him, he forgave him. The Prophet forgave him. But he told him, don't let me see you. But otherwise, the Prophet ﷺ did not hold any ill feeling against anybody, any of his previous enemies. He would welcome them. I mean, the most obvious example was Khalid bin Walid, basically who turned the whole battle of Uhud into a defeat. He did not just, oh, he is the one that I will never forgive him. You know, no, the Prophet even praised him by calling him the sharp sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the same thing with the other companions. Umar bin Khattab alayhi himself used to be one of those torturing the Muslims the most. But the Prophet accepted him and loved him alayhi salatu wasalam. Even Abu Sufyan ibn Harb himself, when he became Muslim after the conquest of Mecca, the Prophet accepted him. So the Prophet would not hold anything against anybody, but would always forgive. Even despite the hardship, you know, despite the hardship and the heights of hardship, the Prophet would forgive. You know the famous story when he returned back from Ta'if. Now here's the people of Mecca, the heights of the persecution, and he went out to the Ta'if seeking a place, basically a refuge for the da'wah, and he was chased out with the stones until his feet got bloodied, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then at that time, Jibreel and the angel of the mountains come down. And they told him, Ya Muhammad, Jibreel told him, this is the angel of the mountain. If you want, he can crumble the mountains over the people of Mecca for what they did to you. And the Prophet ﷺ told him, what did he tell him? He says, لَعَلَّ اللَّهُ يُخْرِجُ مِنْ أَصْلَابِهِمْ مَنْ يُوَحِّدُهُ. That Allah may bring out of their progeny. He said, no. Allah may bring out of their progeny somebody who will worship him. And that's exactly what happened, right? The very son of Abu Jahl became a Sahabi. Khalid bin Walid became a Sahabi. The son of Umayyah, Safwan ibn Umayyah, became a Sahabi. So that's exactly what the Prophet foretold, alayhi salatu wasalam. He could have asked for them to be destroyed. And if he did, it would be just another example of Ad, Thamud, Lut, and all the earlier people that were destroyed because of what they did to their prophets. But Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said, I don't want that to happen. Allah may bring out of their progeny somebody who will worship Him. So those same people, eventually they became an asset to the message instead of actually being destroyed as the Prophet ﷺ was offered. So the Prophet ﷺ used to start his day before Fajr. And here the Surah Al-Muzammil, by the way, when Surah Al-Muzammil was revealed, this is in the early days of Mecca, Qiyam al-Layl was fard. And the whole surah was revealed until the last verse was revealed much later. Some believe that after the migration or at the time of the migration. And that's when Qiyam al-Layl became a sunnah, became recommended and not required. So the Prophet ﷺ used to start his day really early. One day, in the middle of the night, the Prophet ﷺ was trying to get close to Aisha ﷺ, and he asked her then, let me sit alone, let me be by myself. And the Prophet ﷺ sat by himself like that, crying all the way until Fajr, until Bilal actually came down to the Prophet ﷺ. Ya Rasulullah, what makes you cry? Allah is forgiving everything to you. And the Prophet ﷺ told him of the verses in Surah Al Imran that Allah revealed, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. He said to him that Allah tonight revealed to me these two verses, that indeed in the creation of the heaven and the earth and the change between the night and the day are signs, ayat, for people of reason that ponder about the creation of Allah and they think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala standing and sitting, whatever they're doing. And they will say, رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. Ya Allah, you did not create that in vain. Subhanak, glory be to you. فَقِنَا عَذَابَنَا. Guard us against the torment of the hellfire. And he said to Bilal, وَيْنٌ لِمَنْ سَمِعَهَا وَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرْ بِهَا. That woe to someone, to everyone, anyone who hears it and does not ponder about it. So the Prophet ﷺ was spending the whole night pondering about that verse, as he said, alayhi salatu wasalam. And that's how his day would start. And of course, the prayer, Salat al-Fajr in Jama'ah, and then after that, the Adhkar. Ibn Taymiyyah used to say that this is my breakfast. In other words, if I don't do that, then I would be starving, going through the whole day starving. Because this is really what gives me the provision for the whole day. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, like I said, he was easily accessible. And his character was the vehicle of his message. This is something really important. People will not accept your message unless they accept your character. So if you have a bad character, you could be having the greatest message, people will not accept it. It's the face of your message. Your character is the face of your message. That's what the Prophet ﷺ was believed by many people simply based on his character. Because they would know that the Prophet would never lie. So he was known for two specific qualities among others before the da'wah, which is as-sadiq or as-sidq and al-amana, the truthfulness and the trustworthiness, which are two qualities specifically needed for conveying the message, by the way. That he would never lie, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he was trustworthy. So whenever he would say something, they would believe him. Even though they would not accept his message, but they knew that he would never make a lie, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's when he threatened them, that if you turn away, فَأَنذَرْتُكُمْ صَاعِقَةً مِثْلَ صَاعِقَةِ عَادٍ وَثَمُودٍ, that if you turn away, he was reciting from the Quran, then I warn you of a lightning or that would hit you like the one that hit Ad and Thamud. And the kuffar actually believed in him because they said to each other that, that Muhammad never lies. So when he says something, he would never lie. And that's why, by the way, Umayyah bin Khalaf, who was killed in the Battle of Badr, initially he did not want to participate in the Battle of Badr. Why? Because when the Prophet was already in Mecca, Umayyah was threatening him. And the Prophet told him that when we meet you in the battlefield, I will kill you. Or we will kill you. And he trusted that. And the same thing with his brother Ubay ibn Khalaf, that the Prophet ﷺ told him that I will kill you in the battlefield. And he is known to be the only person that the Prophet killed, by the way. And what happened in the Battle of Uhud now, the first one died in the Battle of Badr, that the Prophet ﷺ threw the spear at him, and it hit him here, somewhere like, between his neck and his shoulder, and it wasn't something fatal. It wasn't something, but the guy just went crazy. He said, قَتَلَنِي Muhammad, that Muhammad killed me. And they said to him, well, it was just a small thing, it wasn't something big. But the guy was so terrified because Prophet Muhammad told him that we will kill you, that he actually died because of that wound. So they believed in Prophet Muhammad, they believed him, even though they did not believe in him as a prophet. It's because of his character. So if you want to work in the da'wah, the first thing that you want to work on is really your character. Because your character is going to convey your message to the others. There's a famous philosopher, as a Fitch, he said that the mind does not accept that which the heart rejects. So if the heart rejects, the mind will never accept. In other words, if people rejected your character as a person in their heart, they will never accept your message. Because they put you all in the same basket. So that's how the Prophet was, alayhi salatu wassalam. And just a few examples of his character, of how he was. There's a hadith by Anas, muttafaq alayh. He said that I've never touched any silk, whether soft or rough silk, in other words, very nice, that is softer than the hand of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, that I've never smelled any musk or perfume that is nicer than the sweat of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was well groomed, so to speak. He was well dressed. Sometimes we feel that, I'm going to walk to the masjid a long distance because I have more steps, more reward, and you get to the masjid sweaty and stinky, this is good. No, this is not how the Prophet was, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet said that bring your beauty, or beautification, so to speak, to your masajid. And do not harm others with certain smells, the garlic, the onions, or even sweat and whatnot. That's not how the Prophet was, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet, like I said, was something that everybody would look forward to. And the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ أَن يُرَى أَثَرَ نِعْمَتِهِ عَلَى عَبْدِهِ. Allah loves to see the signs of His blessings on His servant. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with something, not to show it off, by the way, not just like brag about it, but at least dress something nice. Dress really nicely, especially when you come to the masjid. And another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this famous hadith, where he says, if I didn't fear the hardship on my ummah, I would have asked them to basically do a lot of siwak. And another hadith, the Prophet says, لا تأتوني كلحا استاكوا. And now do not come to me with their mouth smelling or, dirty, whatever. Use the siwak. Use as the Prophet ﷺ used to say. And the Prophet ﷺ, they said that whenever he would sit among his companions, that each person will feel that he is the most important person to him. And this is something, like I said, and he wasn't pretending alayhi salatu or faking it alayhi salatu wasalam, but he was genuinely interested in the Sahaba, that each person in a certain gathering will feel, well, I must be the most important person for the Prophet. No, it's me. Look, the Prophet is giving me all the attention, it must be the one. That's why there's an interesting hadith, sahih hadith by Amr ibn al-As. He says that shortly after he became Muslim, he said that كان رسول الله يقبل علي بوجهه حتى أني لظننت أني أحب الناس إليه. The Prophet used to give me special attention. So much that I thought I was the most beloved person to him. So I asked him, Ya Rasulullah, who do you love the most? Pick me. Who do you love the most? And the Prophet ﷺ said Aisha. That's what he said ﷺ. His wife, Aisha. More than her father. As he said, everybody together, Aisha. She's the one that he used to love the most. Then he said, فَمِنَ الرِّجَالِ. What about the men? And the Prophet said, her father. Then who, Ya Rasulullah? And the Prophet says, then Umar, Ali, Uthman, and all of these things. Then Amr ibn al-As, he says, فَعَدَّ رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا. Then he listed many names, and my name still didn't appear, so I stopped. Now here it shows you, of course, first of all, it shows you that the honesty of the Prophet ﷺ, that even though he was giving him a special attention, but he would not pretend that, no, you're more important than these other people to me. He would say it, ﷺ. But also it shows you the honesty of the companions. That here's this Sahabi basically, he's telling the whole world actually, until the end of times, that I did not figure in the top 10 or top whatever, list of most beloved people to the Prophet. He's telling he could have kept it to himself and let people think whatever they want. I'll just keep it to myself. But that's not how the Sahaba were, alayhim ridwanillah. When they hear something from the Prophet, they feel the duty to convey it to the others, even if they are less favored in that narration than other people. This is the honesty of the Prophet and the Sahaba, alayhim ridwanillah. Anas ibn Malik said that whenever somebody actually would grab the ear of the Prophet, in other words, to tell him something, the Prophet ﷺ will never move his head away until that other person actually moves first. Whenever somebody shakes hands with the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet would never be the first one to let go until the other person actually would let go. And he said he is the person that always start the other with the salam. So he would not wait for the others to say the salam, but he would always take the initiative to say the salam. Sometimes we take it personally. No, I'm not going to say until he says that to me. Why do I have to be the one? No, the Prophet, he used to be the first one that would start with the salam. So when you're doing it, you're following the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and he would always be the first one that starts with the handshake, and always stretches his hand for his handshake. Aisha alayhi used to say that I've never seen anybody with a better character than the Prophet ﷺ. Whenever anybody, any family member or friend would call him, he would reply by saying, what would he say? He would say labbaik, subhanallah, which is such a beautiful expression. It means, here I come to you. He would not say what? He would not say yes, but he would say something much better by saying labbaik, that yes, I'm coming to you. Whenever somebody would call him, he would respond by saying labbaik. That's how great he was, alayhi salatu wasalam, and how humble. He was so accessible and merciful, of course, that we know the story of the Bedouin that was urinating in the masjid. So the Prophet's sitting with his companions, and that Bedouin goes close to the Prophet of the whole masjid. He goes there, and he started urinating. Some of the Sahaba want to beat him, and the Prophet ﷺ said to them, do not disturb what he's doing. Do not disturb his urination. And when he finished, very kindly and gently, the Prophet told him that the masajid were not made for this. And he asked for a bucket of water to be poured over it because it was sandy, it would percolate, it would go down, and that would clean it. Then the man said to him, may Allah have mercy on you and me and nobody else. And the Prophet very kindly and gently said to him, لَقَدْ تَحَجَّرْتَ وَاسِعًا, that something is big, is vast, you're making it tight, which is the mercy of Allah. The mercy of Allah is open. You're making it tight. And of course we have the other example of the young companion who came to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, إِذَنْ لِي بِالزِّنَا, give me the permission to commit adultery. Can you imagine that? And first of all, he felt comfortable enough with the Prophet to make that request. He felt close enough to the Prophet to make that request. And the Prophet ﷺ, very kindly and gently, he told him that, people don't like it to happen to their sister. Would you like it to happen to your sister? And the man said no. People don't like it to happen to their mothers. Would you like it to happen to your mother? Don't like it to happen to their daughter. Would you like it to happen to your daughter? And the man said no. And the Prophet put his blessed hand on his chest, and he said, may Allah protect his heart and guard his chastity. And the man said, when the Prophet took his hand off, then there was nothing more hated to me than adultery. This was not a miracle. This was the law of kindness. So the Prophet connected with this man to the point that he made this act most hated to him after it was most beloved to him to start with. That's how the Prophet was, alayhi salatu wasalam. And although he was able to reach to them. There was once a brother actually here in the US, and a young, a youth came to him and he says, I want to have a girlfriend and whatnot. So the brother actually basically tried to follow the same approach, and he told him that, people don't like it to happen to their sister. Would you like it to happen to your sister? And the young person says, well, if she's okay with it, yeah, why not? Now, of course, the lesson in here, the important lesson here is that sometimes it is not the verbal or the literal, basically words, but the approach, that the connection. So in other words, the Prophet was talking to him at a level that he understood, that he can connect with. And that's the lesson that has to be taken. That sometimes the same words may not have the same impact because people have a different cultural background, cultural, baggage, cultural whatever, setting. So that's why the point here is to connect with them at their level in a way that they understand. And that's exactly what the Prophet did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He was able to connect with the Sahaba, alayhi wa. They did not feel him aloof, somebody who was really irrelevant or somebody who was above, but he was one of the Sahaba, alayhi wa. And like I said, when you read his biography, you will feel that his example actually is easier to follow than many other personalities actually in history. He's not a difficult person actually to emulate. He was great. Once he was walking actually in the streets of Medina, and he found a companion by the name of Nu'ayman ibn Abdullah. This Nu'ayman bin Abdullah, I'm sorry, let me turn this thing off. This Nu'ayman bin Abdullah was basically talking to some sisters, chatting with them, that he wasn't supposed to. And the Prophet passed by him. The Prophet didn't say anything, but the man, of course, felt the Prophet basically said something. And a little later, Nu'ayman was praying in the masjid. And the Prophet came and he sat next to him. Then Nu'ayman made the prayer long. And the Prophet told him, Ya Nu'ayman, you can pray until the day of judgment. I'm staying here. Make it as long as you want. And when he finished, he told him that, first, when the Prophet saw him actually, he asked him basically, what are you doing? And the man says, basically, I have a camel that was lost, and I'm asking about, I'm asking those sisters about it. So when the man finished his prayer, the Prophet came to him, he says, Ya Nu'ayman, what have you done with your lost camel? And Nu'ayman says, Ya Rasulullah, it will never go lost after today. This is it. Now he got the message. So the Prophet ﷺ was able to connect with them in a loving and caring way. That's why they loved him so much, and they would accept anything from him, ﷺ. They followed his example not just because it's the best way, because they loved him more than anything else, ﷺ. And he was the greatest example. Even another example in the battle of Al-Khandaq. Toward the end of the battle, the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba that who among you will get me some information from the camp of the kuffar, and I will guarantee Al-Jannah for him. And the Prophet eventually asked Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman to go. And it was a very cold night. Long story short, So Hudayfa goes to the other side. And when he went to the other side, he felt like everything is warm and everything is comfortable. But when he came back and his duty was finished, he was trembling. It was very cold and he was shivering. So he goes to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet was praying inside his tent. And while the Prophet is praying, he overhears the clenching of the teeth of Hudayfa. He was so shivering, trembling, it was so cold, his teeth were clenching. So the Prophet ﷺ, in the middle of the prayer, he opens his cloak, signaling to him to come, and then he covered him. In the middle of the prayer, subhanAllah, look how merciful he was, ﷺ, until he finished his prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ cared about the Sahaba, and he would recognize them and, how should I say, will not be distracted by the bigger picture from the individuals. Sometimes, when you are in the middle of a big event, you don't see anybody. I'm just so busy, I don't see anybody. The Prophet would still recognize the Sahaba. That's why, interestingly, after the conquest of Khaybar, so here you have this big stronghold of the Jews of Medina, of Arabia, and they were trying to attack the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet wins. What could be greater basically than that, a great victory. And then Ja'far bin Abi Talib comes back from Abyssinia. So here's this one man, one Sahabi, comes back from Abyssinia, and the Prophet used to love him. And the Prophet would say, I don't know what brings me more happiness, the conquest of Khaybar or the return of Ja'far. Subhanallah. And always like he's putting it on an equal level, so to speak. But that's how caring he was, ﷺ, about the Sahaba themselves. In other words, he would still see them despite the big events and the big victory and the big thing, the big picture, but the Prophet ﷺ would still see the individuals. Each one of them will have a special attention. He will nickname the Sahaba until you think that this is the most important person. I mean, like for example, when you hear what the Prophet would say about Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, the Prophet would say each prophet had a disciple, had a hawari. And my disciple is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. You think this is it. It has to be the Zubayr, the most important thing. But the Prophet ﷺ would trust Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman with his secret. That's why Hudayfa was known as the secret keeper of the Prophet. No, it's Hudayfa. That it's not Zubayr, it's Hudayfa. Or the Prophet would praise Khalid ibn al-Walid, the sharp sword of Allah. Oh, it's Khalid ibn al-Walid. There's no doubt about it. So and the Prophet would nickname the Sahaba alayhim ridwanullah. Like the Prophet would nickname Abu Bakr as al-Siddiq, or Umar as al-Faruq. And each time you hear about one of the Sahaba, you feel that this is the most important person for the Prophet ﷺ. And the answer, of course, all of them are important, but of course the Prophet still, loved certain Sahaba more than others. And he was one of them, so that when the Sahaba would starve, he would starve with them. He would starve with them. As in the Battle of Al-Khandaq, when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and the Sahaba would have this stone tied on their belly just because of their hunger to keep their stomach, And the Prophet showed that he had 2 stones and not one, alayhi salatu wassalam. So he was not setting himself above the Sahaba, but he was one of them. Jabir ibn Samra, he said, I sat with the Prophet more than 100 times. I visited with the Prophet more than 100 times, and the Prophet ﷺ would participate with us in jokes. So when we talk about, for example, about the Jahiliyyah, he would smile. When we talk about food, he would talk about food. So he would not always try to control the gathering, so to speak, or to lead the discussion his own way as he would, ﷺ, but he would never do that. But he would just be sitting with the Sahaba, and if somebody would joke, he would joke. Somebody would smile, he would smile. And he never criticized a food, ever. If it is something that he likes, he would eat it. If it's something that he doesn't like, he would leave it. But he would not criticize it, So his words were counted. Aisha would say that if you want, you could count how many words the Prophet say. But you would tell me, but there are thousands of ahadith, right? I mean, so that's not little. There are thousands of ahadith. The fact that you can count the ahadith of the Prophet, it means they're very little. I mean, if I were to count how many sentences you would say, how many things you would do in the day, I mean, thousands in one day. But the fact that you could count actually how many times the Prophet, how many hadith the Prophet ﷺ had, it means that there are not that many of them. It means that the Prophet ﷺ did not speak much, but as he was described, that you could count actually how many times or how many words the Prophet would say. SubhanAllah, you can go on and on about the Prophet ﷺ. One of the most enjoyable topics is to talk about him. Allah made it easy to love him, ﷺ, which is a sign of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the Prophet, ﷺ. And loving the Prophet can only bring benefit. Because first it makes it easier to follow his example. The second thing, because as he told us, alayhi salatu wassalam, يُحْشَرُ الْمَرْءُ مَعْ مَنْ أَحَبَّ. The person will be gathered on the day of judgment with the ones that he loves. There's nothing that we can do that would match what the Prophet or the companions did. In other words, we wouldn't stand even their most remote chance to be with them on the day of judgment. We just hope that by loving them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us their company. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us His company on the day of judgment and the highest place in the Jannah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullah khair. Is there any question or comment? Nope. Going once? Yes.
Some might say that the Prophet ﷺ was guided by wahy, so he has to conform his character.
He has to what?
He has to conform his character to the wahy.
Yes.
He's guided by the wahy, so he can't just an outside person just say and speak anything. Even though we have an example prior to wahy that he was also has the character.
Yeah, but his character was great even before the revelation. His character was before the revelation, but he's also guided by the revelation. But does not take that away from him being a human being. To say, for example, that he's irrelevant. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ. See, I'm a human being like you, but I receive revelation. So in other words, he's still a human being. So his character was still accessible, was still easily followed. We can follow his example. Even if he's followed, even if he's guided by revelation, but he's still a human being that is still easy to follow. So the revelation does not set him above a human status, so to speak, in his nature. No, he was still a human being, alayhi salatu wassalam. We have the revelation, we have it, right? So we are guided by revelation. We can choose to be guided by the revelation.
So when you talk to some people, they would say, don't expect me to be like Prophet's character.
Well, see, nobody will attain the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. Of course, nobody will attain the caliber of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. But we can follow his example. And the Sahaba did. The Sahaba did not say, well, that's the Prophet, I'm not going to do that. No, the Prophet, they tried their hardest to follow the guidance of the Prophet or the character or the path of the Prophet. And Allah is saying that in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That you have the best example in the Prophet. Uswa means you have to follow him. Not you just decorate him, just put him somewhere up there, and this is like a blessing or whatever. No, he was a real person. He was not a myth, alayhi salatu wassalam, or a legend. He was a real person. And following his guidance can be done. We can do it. Yes?
What type of a joke would the Prophet say? I mean, he's never been described as someone who would joke.
Well, no, he would joke, alayhi salatu wasalam, but he wouldn't lie in the joke. Like, for example, once he grabbed basically a person who was known to be a wrestler. He grabbed him from behind, and he said, who would buy this slave? And the man said, Ya Rasulullah, you will find me to be a bad merchandise, nobody will buy me. And the Prophet says, but in the eyes of Allah, you're a great person, or you're not that, So the Prophet would do that. Or for example, he said to an old woman that, that old people will not enter paradise. And she was about to be said, he said to her, but you will be very young by then, when you enter paradise. So now the Prophet would joke, alayhi salatu wasalam, with the Sahaba, alayhim wa, but it was tasteful, so to speak. It wasn't like profanity or something like we do it today, But he would joke, alayhi salatu wasalam. Yes, like they would throw dates and whatever, and he would sing with them when they were basically digging in the trench before the battle of the trench. He would be singing with them, وَاللَّهِ لَوْلَا اللَّهِ مَا اهْتَدَيْنَا وَلَا تَصَدَّقْنَا وَلَا صَلَّيْنَا فَأَنزِلْ سَكِينَةً عَلَيْنَا وَثَبِّتِ الْأَقْدَامَ إِنْ لَقِينَا. So he would recite some beautiful nasheed as he was with the Sahaba, alayhim, digging and and moving and carrying stones like everybody else. Yes.
Like you mentioned the story of
Wahshi, yes.
Yeah, before eating, but you want to see. There is sometimes people forgive someone, but being around them or you don't be connected.
Yeah, you can.
You
Yeah.
can say once in a while hi, or you
Yeah.
might not go visit them at all.
Sure. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. When somebody, for example, wrongs you, for example, you can forgive them. It doesn't mean you're going to go back to being their close friends, No, but, I forgive you, but in other words, we say salam, there's nothing wrong with whatever, but you don't feel comfortable being back close to them as they were before. You learn something about their character, for example, that this is not, see, these are things that you cannot force, basically, either. It's coming out of the heart.
But they say when you do that, some people will
No. See, the thing, that's why he said that there's a difference between the behavior and the feelings. Let's say, for example, you connect with them, you do what you're supposed to do, especially if someone that you're related to. So, for example, your sister, for example, or whatever, No, you connect to them. If you need anything, let me know. I'll be here for you, whatever, But it may not be that, for example, that we used to spend 6 hours a day together. Well, I can't do it anymore. But sometimes, pushing the limit, by the way, is good, by the way. In other words, sometimes, how should I say it? You want to push your comfort limit sometimes. Because some of us have the tendency of getting further and further isolated otherwise, Yes.
That sometimes there are certain Muslims who mention
Of what?
of what the Prophet told us to do, or
Yes.
what he did, or, I mean, there are some, mosques we go to and they say, oh, you have to make wudu, you have to raise your hands like this, and you have to,
Jazakallah khair.
things like that.
Well, see, this is a big area. How do you interpret the text, whether hadith or Quran, by the way? The same thing. In other words, there are certain verses that can be interpreted in more than one way, and certain ahadith that can be interpreted in more than one way. I think it's really important that the sacredness, in case of text like that, whether Quran or hadith, the sacredness of the text is not carried over to the interpretation. In other words, the hadith, if it's authentic, is sacred. But my interpretation of that hadith may not be sacred. In other words, I may give a certain interpretation of a hadith. And if you disagree with my interpretation, I cannot say that you're disagreeing with the hadith. No. Disagreeing with the interpretation of that hadith. There's a difference. So there are certain ahadith and certain Quranic verses that support multiple interpretations, but not everything. In other words, not every hadith or Quranic verse supports multiple interpretations. Some of them have a very clear meaning. How do I know which interpretation is the correct one? There are tools for that. That's where the specialists actually come in. People that are specialized in certain area of usul al-fiqh and al-fiqh that, or sometimes the tafsir, or al-hadith, that explain or interpret the hadith in a certain way. Now, how do I know which one to choose? If I was given multiple interpretation, the rule here is that if there's a scholar or an imam or a sheikh that I trust him, I trust his character, and I trust his interpretation, his knowledge, then I will take his interpretation. Because I may not be qualified myself, to interpret the hadith in the proper way. Because certain hadith, like I said, it may be, like for example, the hadith about shortening the above the ankle for the men. That's for the men, by the way. Some they say no, it has to be taken literally. Some they say no, this is a sign of, because it's a sign of arrogance at that time, to lengthen the garment below the ankle. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, when Abu Bakr Siddiq told him that, Ya Rasulullah, sometimes it goes below the ankle and I take it up. And the Prophet says, this is not about you. In other words, indicating that this was meant for another purpose. In other words, it may not be sometimes taken literally. Some they said, well, we're going to take it literally, which is fine. They can take it one way or the other. But which interpretation would you follow regarding that hadith or any other hadith? I would say, if it is someone that you trust his knowledge, you trust his character or her character, then I will take whatever interpretation I was given from them. Because like I said, sometimes I may not be qualified myself to tell which is right. I would check which one I trust and I would go with that.
Isn't that we have the difference, like you said, I don't have the knowledge, but there's 2-3 scholars, I follow this scholar, the other one follows the other scholar, or you trust them, and they will have.
No, but see, the thing is that the differences in opinion does not have to lead to divisions, and that's where it becomes problematic. In other words, you can follow an opinion, she can follow another opinion, I can follow a third opinion of the same matter, regarding the same matter. And we can do that, but that does not have to translate into fighting and bickering. So we can follow different interpretations if they are legitimate interpretations, but that does not have to lead to divisions. The Sahaba, they differed in opinion. They didn't have the same opinion about everything, which gives, by the way, a lot of richness and flexibility of the deen, to the deen, by having multiple opinions of the Sahaba themselves. But that should not lead into divisions. That's when it becomes problematic. So if you decide to follow this scholar that you decide, this is a credible scholar for me, she's following another person that's credible for her, that's good. That's really good. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sound like the moon sighting.
Yes. Except with the moon sighting, there's another aspect in there, which is the jama'ah. In other words, here, this is something that has to be decided by the leadership of the community. It cannot be left to individuals to decide, I'm going to follow this, I'm going to follow that. Because there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "As-sawmu idha sama an-nas, aw sawmukum yawma tasumun." So you fast with the people. And here the leadership is the one that decides. I can have a different opinion than the leadership. It's fine, but I keep it to myself. But I still have to follow what the leadership decides. So if the leadership has decided that tomorrow is Eid, tomorrow is Eid. Whether they go by the opinion that I go with or not, I have to go with that. In personal things, you have the option. In personal things, you have the option. In the collective things that affect the community, I have to follow the leadership of the community.
So my question is, the Prophet ﷺ played with his wife, helping in the house,
Yes, yes.
smile at the wife. But nowadays, some of the cultures are very strict. They will smile at the wife,
Jazakallah.
in the house, as if, all dedicated to the wife, the work.
See, the Prophet ﷺ, of course, but see, unfortunately, sometimes some of the societies, they default into the rigidity and the strictness and whatnot. The Prophet ﷺ played with Aisha radhiyallahu, and even he raced with her. The hadith, what Prophet, he raced with her, he beat her, then she beat him. He beat her after she gained weight. But the important thing to keep in mind is that who narrated this hadith? Aisha herself. So there's something that's done in the privacy. In other words, not like in front of everybody, let's go race, whatever. No. This is done in the privacy. In other words, the PDA, so to speak, the public display of affection, these are things that we know of the Prophet ﷺ because the Prophet was a musharri', a legislator. But we don't know, for example, that Abu Bakr Siddiq did it. It doesn't mean he didn't do it. Because these things are done privately. And the reason we know that the Prophet did them, because the Prophet was a musharri', a legislator. In other words, the Prophet is teaching us something. The best people that follow the Prophet's guidance, the best are the closest companions. So if the Prophet did it, then definitely Abu Bakr and the closest companions did it. But we don't have narrations that they did it. Because it was done, it is something to be done privately. So the public display of affection is something that's not something. You want to express affection, do it privately. And some people, subhanAllah, they post it. And they go out and have dinner with their wife, and they says on Facebook, "Oh, my dear wife, thank you very much for the lovely dinner." They say it to her. Why are you putting it on Facebook? You see? In other words, these are things that are done privately. Instead of saying the whole word, she's next to you. Say it to her. Instead of putting it like there. These things are done privately. I think intimacy and privacy. There has to be some guidelines to be followed. What?
Or helping in the house.
Yes, no, of course. The Prophet used to help in the household. By the way, I know some great sheikhs, great scholars, and they help in the housework. I've seen it. And if I haven't seen it, they wouldn't say it. Because I'm close to some of them and I've seen what they do. I've seen people doing that. Hey, inshallah. Okay. Yes? Yes, one of the reasons we have, by the way, there's more than 4 madhab, but they're not as famous, like madhab al-Awza'i, for example, Imam al-Awza'i, madhab al-Layth, for example. But the reason we have 4 madhab, because sometimes the same text can be explained in multiple ways. In other words, the same hadith can be explained in different ways. And sometimes, not only that, but you may have multiple ahadith regarding the same matter, and some may place more weight on one hadith than the other. Hadith A, B, and C. One of them would say, for example, according to me, Hadith A is the most authentic one, so I'm going to base my hukm on Hadith A. The other says, no, I think Hadith C is more authentic. I'm going to base it on Hadith C. So different assessment of the situation. And sometimes, of course, the environment dictates. The environment and the situation dictates. That's why Imam al-Shafi'i, alayhi radwanillah, he was living initially in Baghdad. And then he traveled to Egypt. So he has 2 madhab. It's called the madhab al-qadim and madhab al-jadid, the old madhab and the new madhab. When he went to Egypt, he answered some of the same questions differently because the environment is different. So sometimes the environment dictates different fatwa or different hukum based on what is, but not in everything. There are certain things that are fixed, they don't change. But certain things are flexible. Certain things are flexible. Okay? Khair, inshallah. Yeah, yes. One last question, inshallah. Okay. The who? Who? Yes. Jazakumullah khair. Well, I know some people do talk about it. The situation in Myanmar, of course, of the Muslims over there and the killing, the situation, of course, is deplorable. But you're right, it is done so quietly. It's not really as visible as some of the other places. And I think it's probably has to do with the, how should I say, the strategic importance of certain areas like the Middle East, for example. The oil, nobody cares about Myanmar. Everybody cares about the Middle East because that's really what the oil is happening. But you're right, unfortunately, it is not it is not really getting the visibility that it deserves. We should talk more about it. I know some people do, actually. Some people do. So it's not really completely, some people do, but it's not really as visible as it's supposed to be. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. No, well, you're right. I don't know. I mean, you're right. That's all I can say. Some people don't even know that it exists. You're right. You're right, wallahi. Yeah, and subhanAllah, sometimes the problems are so many, that you don't know really where to focus. Sometimes I can tell you that sometimes when I make dua, you make dua, for, Syria, for Myanmar, for, different places. And very often people come after the salat, and you make dua for all the Muslims. Brother, how come you didn't mention Bangladesh? How come you didn't mention Afghanistan? How come you didn't mention Libya, for example? I told him, I was born in Lebanon, I don't even mention Lebanon. La, subhanAllah, because the problems of the Ummah are too many. You cannot go actually and list all the countries of the Muslim world. You say all the Muslims. But you're right, wallahi, I couldn't add anything to it. Wallahi, you're right. I mean, it does not have or get the visibility that it deserves, unfortunately. Many Muslims are killed in the most savage way quietly, and nobody actually is taking notice of it. Wallahi, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea to maybe to dedicate some khutbahs or some lectures only on that topic. Wallah, inshallah, I'll try to do it myself. Hey, inshallah. جزاكم الله خير. خير إن شاء الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خير.
Okay,